So we have in the top right on Habitation Station, we have the purple Zerg from Team Esports Club Visualize. He is Winter. And his Terran opponent from Team Mouse Control, he is teetie. Now, as you mentioned, TVZ, your favorite matchup, it is mine as well. And it is on a map which allows for some very cheeky TVZ play, but we're not seeing that quite yet.
No, things going relatively standard at the moment. Things like proxy 2-axis are possible. Also, floating down and spawning at the gold base is something Terran players may choose to do. And one of the beautiful builds that is ridiculously strong on this map, if you do that, is going for 3 barracks immediately and using the additional income and just flooding with a lot of Marines, because Zerg players cannot get out Banelings in time to stop that.
Yep, I actually got a tweet from CPU saying, just to let you know, those comments definitely were not BM, we're our friends. I don't think anyone really doubted that at a single moment, because would you really offer to drink beers with someone you don't like? I just thought it was really comic.
It was. They were some sweet comments. I actually think the kind of friendly BM between two people who are good friends with each other is always the best.
It adds a lot of flavor, just put in that way.
I love the way Winter's actually checked so much for proxy racks, because it's such a common build on Habitation Station.
And the gold. Of course he has an overlord for that, but you still want to be sure that your opponent is not floating to the gold. It can lead to some nasty surprises. So yeah, Reaper build here from teetie. Very, very standard, but also for a good reason. It's just very solid. And I'm expecting a macro game here from both of these players. Probably gonna be just try to do their best. A bio build out of teetie, and probably Lingbane muted from Winter.
And this Reaper build has some good follow-ons to it. Whether we see Banshee or not is always a good question to keep an eye on, because you get a lot of Terran players like to go Banshee. Habitation Station is probably the best map currently to do that on. Yep. But it's a much bigger commitment. You have to get some damage down with it. Whereas if you just go out for the 2 Hellions, or the 4 Hellions off the back of 2 Reapers, it can go nicer. It's going to be the 2 Reapers, so should see Hellions now.
We should see Hellions. It's as standard as can be, but it's more than expected in every sense of the word. Interesting about Habitation Station is that's actually a very good map for mech, I feel. The relatively short distances between the bases, as well as the fact you can really secure your gold base a bit more easily with tanks and floors and the like, allows for a couple of very cool timings as well from the Terran. We see a lot of +2/+2 timings from Terran, which can just straight up kill a lot of Zergs unless they are adequately prepared.
So, Reaper just being a little bit irritating here. Winter produced a good number of Lings. 6 Lings out early on is quite a big commitment. Not able to surround this Reaper either, so it's got plenty of time to back away. His buddy's coming in to help him out too. And this is annoying, especially when you know, as a Zerg player, that every Ling you lose now is one you're going to have to replace when the inevitable Hellion follow-up hits.
It seems that teetie doesn't seem that confident in his multitasking, in his micro. Usually when you see players like top-tier Koreans, 4GG for example, go for builds and strategies like this, they're a lot more aggressive with the Reapers. Right now he could just jump into the main and snipe a drone or two, but he hasn't opted to do that whatever, even though Zerg really cannot do anything against it.
The trouble is, if teetie were to lose even one of these Reapers, the follow-up push, which can deal really big damage, is rendered somewhat useless. Whereas the only potential gain he gets from being very harassment heavy with the Reapers is a couple of drones at best. So I think it's better to assume that, or maybe realize you're not able to confidently do that sort of harassment and make the follow-up big push work better than risk everything on getting a slight better edge.
Yep, and like you mentioned, it is Banshee for the Terran. Now moving out already quite a bit with these Hellions and Reapers. Picking off a creep tumor. Winter does have, of course, a solid amount of queens out on the map right now, and he's looking geared to take a third from my perspective. But he is actually adding double gas as well as a quick lair, so this is like an early muta build.
The Roach Warren coming down though as well, so that's a nice addition. A couple of Roaches is probably the best thing you can do to defend against this. And the Spore Coolers as well. An absolutely brilliant decision. Winter just got a full scout out. Knows that the Banshee are coming. Knows that they've got Cloak because of the Tech Lab glowing. And so shouldn't have too much to worry about in the way of these Banshees being aggressive. But these Spore Cooler placements are a little bit unorthodox. Usually you'll have them in the mineral line because the Banshee's actually going to have plenty of room to come around the back and can stay out of even detection radius at the back here while picking off drones.
Yeah, it's. I agree. This placement is quite unorthodox. I'm also a bit surprised that he hasn't opted to connect this both of his bases with more creep. And wow, this scan here by teetie is actually really good, and he can do a lot of damage here.
In goes the Hellions, in goes the Reapers. The Banshee should get in on this fight too, just to aid with a bit more DPS. The Queen's going to be able to hold this off though.
Yeah, this shows what the Spore Crawler is for. Negating the DPS of the Banshee was quite instrumental in that fight, because that Banshee would have gone in a lot of damage and might actually have allowed the Terran to just overwhelm his opponent. But double Banshee right now, and we have some secure map control here for teetie.
In fact, Banshee is still alive. Stop these Roaches from counter-attacking or pressuring. teetie, adding in a third CC, also adding in additional barracks. You're also pressuring nicely against these Roaches. Needs to be careful with the Hellions and Reapers though. There's no benefit to these being in this fight. Gotta be careful with the Banshee as well though. You don't want to be engaging up against the Queens.
Yeah, I don't think he will be able to deny the third, which is of course pretty much the optimal result you can get as a Terran when you push with Banshees. We have quite an early third command center here for teetie. Well, it's not that early compared to typical 3cc builds. But I see a nice timing for him here, along especially with the tanks. If you can get a nice mix-up with a bunch of medevacs, a tank, some Marauders and Banshees, you can smash through the Roach count if you micro correctly.
This Roach count though is skyrocketing.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of Roaches. But then again, this means that teetie is actually in quite a good defensive position, I think.
As long as he sieges up those tanks, 16 Roaches don't easily break this line. It takes, as long as the tanks are back, the Roaches can't actually take off this wall off that fast, and the tank damage is surprisingly high.
Uh-oh, here come the Roaches.
It's down, the supply depots didn't go up, no use of a wall off if it's not used. The tank instantly prioritized, the Marauders getting taken out next. The Banshee, sure, they're going to deal with these Roaches over time, but not before they've done some great damage.
Yep, I agree. The bunker gets prepared, but not in time. One Marauder gets added. Roach is going to town in the in the SCVs in the mineral line. And this was kind of nice timing here by Winter, but I wonder, was it really worth the trade?
Okay, let's assess. 13 workers were killed.
Yeah, against the Terran with 3 command centers.
Not really worth it, because each mule is roughly worth kind of 4 or 5 SCVs. Okay, so 13 worker kills is made up for by having the 3 mules. Economically, therefore, it's not a big win. However, Winter has spent a lot on these Roaches and those Roach upgrades. He's now going into Roach Hydra against what is actually predominantly a bio force. Not the best composition. If this was mech, I'd be saying a completely different thing. Gonna be very interesting to see how Winter handles this situation now.
So teetie actually has 2 siege tanks, which are an amazing complement to a bio army if you go up against Roach Hydra. They're just so effective. And this timing here from him is actually it's quite kind of cute. Like the army production for Winter hasn't really started. He doesn't have much of a bank. He can add on a bunch of Roaches, and he doesn't have really all that much of an answer against what teetie has. So I wonder if teetie decides to just push out and force more army from his opponent, and it's quite an interesting point in the game right now.
Big push coming out from teetie.
Oh, actually a bunch of Roaches.
Yeah, the Roaches are doing a surprising amount of damage here in the natural base. SCVs even being pulled just to try and stop them doing too much. The Marauders should be able to finish them off, but a big engagement now over on Winter's side, and teetie pushing back that creep.
Yeah, that creep being reduced is actually very good here for the Terran. Especially against Roach Hydra, which relies, on their own, these units are not particularly the fastest, even with upgrades. But the creep really helps, except for Hydras. They're actually just like 1% slower on creep for some reason. when they have the actual speed upgrade. Oh, here we go.
Big engagement coming through. Nice concave there for Winter. The siege
Focusing
tanks,
down the tanks.
they get taken down, but the roaches pretty much gone, so those hydras are undefended. TT has just got so much bio, the medevacs keeping it alive, and the prioritizing of the tanks had to come through, but it just allowed those marines and marauders to destroy everything.
Yeah, definitely. The medevac's still alive. More bio here trickling in, and well, a lot of roaches though in production for Winter. But the question is, TT now has position at the bottom of this ramp, and if he keeps it secured, he can actually just camp and cut off the third base and take it out.
There's a really high number of marauders in this composition too. That's really what's allowing TT to do this, despite being down in upgrades at 1-1 compared to 2-2. The reinforcements coming through are really needed though. The medevac's nearly out of energy, but with tanks with more marauders and more marines on their way, it's a frantic struggle for Winter to get a critical mass of units out to actually shut down this push.
Yes, critical mass is all what it's about in Roach Hydra versus Bio. It looks like, oh, there's so much, just continuous trickle of Terran units here being reinforced, and I think that the skill is definitely tipping in the Terran's favor, especially with the upgrades. If we look at them now, we're finally tilted towards the Terran. Now drones being pulled up the line, which in the last desperation move is always not what you want to do. And wow, he looks to have done it.
I think he has, and unfortunately, it's one of those situations where if you let a Terran player get into a good spot like that, where you've only got trickle defenses against them, they'll get into this kind of never-ending push position that we saw here, where the rally points instantly come over to their army, and you just get a trickle of units back up against